Hi class! Okay, so today we are going to learn how to measure the weight of an object. So what I have in front of me is what we call a balance scale. Think about it. When you measure your weight, you step on something called a scale. And usually when you step on that, it pops up with a quick number. When you go to the doctor's office and they take your weight, they use a machine that looks very similar to this, but it's bigger. You step on the scale, and at the top, the nurse uses gadgets that look similar to this in order to find your weight. So when you go to the doctor's office, they're using basically a giant balance scale. So for us, ours is smaller because we're measuring small objects. So today, I'm going to measure the weight of a cork, of a cube. This is a wooden cube, block cube. Of a button, and of a metal washer. Now, to describe their physical properties, in this case weight, we can use simple terms when we're comparing them. So for example, I would say that the metal washer is heavier than the wooden block. I might say that the cork feels the lightest out of all of them, even lighter than the button. So I'm going to show you how to use a balance scale. Since you're not in actual class, you get to watch my video so you understand how to read and use the balance scale. What you have here is the metal plate. This is where you actually place your objects. On the metal plate, I'm going to place my wooden block. So what you saw just now, let me take that off, is that this little piece on the side is going to go up to the top. See? All right. Now my goal when I'm measuring this is to move these sliders over until the line of the pointer matches the line with the 0. So these lines have to meet up, and I'm trying to get them as exact as I possibly can. So starting at the beginning, these work very similarly to our place values. So this first one counts in increments of 1. And there's also little lines in the middle that represent decimals, which you don't start doing until 4th grade. This is 3rd grade, so we're only going to use halves, just to keep it simple. But as I move this over, I move it to meet my 1. And there's this tiny little pointer on it, and that's what I'm trying to match up with my number. So I'm matching the pointer right here. It matches with my number 1. If I have to move it farther, I'm going to match it to the number 2. Now notice this has not started moving. When I'm getting close to the weight, it's going to move closer to that 0. If it moves below it, I went too far. So this goes all the way up to 10, and then just like our unit cubes, after 10, we have to switch it out for an actual 10. So in our units, we switch it out for rods. On our scale, we switch it out for this piece in the back. The very back counts by tens. So this first notch here is a 10. I already know my block does not weigh 10 grams. It's lighter than 10 grams because I just moved it to the 10, and you see it moved below the 0 here. So that's too heavy. But if I had a very heavy object and I needed to keep going, I could test it in increments of 10. So I have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. And it keeps going all the way to 100. If I reach 100 and it's still too light, then this big block here is like our hundreds cubes because it counts in hundreds. And so we're always trying to get the middle to meet the number. Okay? So 100 grams, 200 grams, 300 grams, 400 grams, and it goes to 500 grams. So we start with our smallest one, and this is pretty light, so I'm going to start with this one. And my goal is to move this over. Now we do it lightly because we don't want our hand to be the reason that it's shaking and going up and down. We want the reason that it's moving to be the weight of the block. So we want to move it pretty lightly over. So when you start to feel it move, I take my hand away and I wait a second. And if it's not where I want it to be, then I keep going. So I'm going to move it to 5 and see what happens. Nope, nothing yet. I'm going to move it to the 6. So you saw that it went down, but I was putting weight on it with my finger. When I took my finger off, it went back up. So I know that it's still too light. When my hand is not touching it, where is my line? It's still too light. So I'm going to the 7. It moved just a little bit. That tells me I'm getting close. I'm going to move to the 8. So you see on the 8, it's getting a lot closer to line, but we're still not exactly on the line. If I move it to the 9, though, if I move it to the 9, it goes past it. So 9 is too much, but 8 is not enough. It's too light. So that means it has to be in the middle. Okay, so if I move it right in the middle, let's see what happens to my line. So unfortunately, in the middle, my line is just barely past that line. So I'm so close. So this is where you have to be patient. So I'm going to get over here. Oh, I'm actually not exactly in the middle. I'm going to move it back just a hair. And literally now I'm using those tiny little lines that are in the very middle of the numbers. So now I'm trying to match it up with each little line until I get exactly on it. And look at that. I got exactly on my scale. So at this point in 3rd grade, we don't do decimals. So I say, which is it closer to? Is it closer to the 8 or to the 9? Well, here, it's closer to the 8. You can see very well. Okay, so it's very close. Almost right in the middle, but not quite. It's still closer to the 8. So I would say that my block here weighs 8 grams. So we're going to practice recording the weight of an object.